Hello, hello, and welcome to Taylor Swift's Lucky Number, episode 13 of Mic Drop. I'm joined as always with Nisha and Katie. And Mic Drop is the podcast series where we just kind of talk about what's going on within the music industry, any new releases or exciting things that are upcoming. And I think we're going to start off with me today, and today's topic is so last week, I remember seeing, I think it was like a post from Spotify, and they're introducing this new ticketing system called Reserved. And essentially, what it is that depending on your engagement with certain artists, your streams, sharing, and as well as like other Spotify activity, um, Spotify themselves are going to reserve two tickets for a certain person to buy before they go live to the general public. And I think this is an interesting take because concert tickets, as we know, are spiking in price, dynamic pricings. I mean, we saw it essentially with Taylor Swift. That was a massive thing at the time. And we're seeing it all over. I mean, concerts themselves getting more and more expensive. I mean, you still have to pay for the tickets, but the chance of getting them with bots and scalpers running rampant, it's kind of just giving it to more fans. And I was just wondering what your guys' takes are. Nisha?
So I didn't actually see about this, but I think they kind of already do this a little bit with kind of pre-sale, and sometimes I get like an email from Spotify and it's like, "Oh, thanks for being a fan. Here's like a code to get in pre-sale early." Um, but I think is it just for like one fan? Like,
So they reserve, so it's like a load of fans will get this pop-up on their Spotify and it reserves two tickets for them. So it's like for the fan themselves to go and maybe like a friend and someone else. So you get two tickets to essentially purchase.
I think it's like it is a cool concept, I suppose. Is it really necessary? If like you're not getting like a discount on like a really expensive ticket or something, because they do already kind of do this sometimes. So I'm kind of trying to see like what's new about it. What is kind of the new sort of system they're using?
Yeah, I think the main thing behind it and the thought is against scalpers and bots. And I think that's what Spotify's main premise is because in when they announced it, they said they're gonna look through Spotify users' activity to see that it's not botted activity. I don't know how they're gonna differentiate that. But they're trying to separate the real from the fake. Katie, what do you think?
Did you say, so is it the top two fans or is it two tickets for a few fans?
So it'll be like a load of fans, but one of them will get two. So it's
Okay,
like if it came up for you on your Spotify, you'll have the chance to buy two tickets.
okay.
But
I
it's
think
not like the top two fans, yeah.
that's okay.
It'll be
I
like more widely accessible than that.
okay, cool. I think that's a good idea. I think that I mean we've all been in a room for an artist and we've thought actually you guys aren't here for the music. Like particularly if it's a bigger artist, sometimes it can take away from the experience a bit if people don't know it and they're talking over it or whatever. And I'm not saying that gigs should be exclusive to just like their top 10 fans or whatever, but I can see the appeal of having definitely like some of the biggest supporters there.
Yeah, and I think there is kind of this two sides to it because I mean, a lot of people like I don't know with fans if essentially for like a big artist you see people camping, a lot of people disagree with that, like this whole idea of camping and going all out, whilst other people will see like other people not putting in as much effort and it's like, oh, they're not a real fan, do they really deserve to be here? It's kind of like this two sides. I remember like reading replies on Twitter and it's like I feel like there's a lot of people who care a lot about their Spotify Wrapped and their minutes that they listen to a certain artist that they just end up sleeping to the music to boost the numbers. And I heard a lot of people making that argument, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference. So I think it's an interesting thing to see. I think it's coming to the US over the summer. Um, we'll see how that is properly executed and takes place because I mean there's been a lot of action against concert tickets within the last year. As I mentioned before, in April, Live Nation was found to have ran a monopoly and overcharging fans and tickets. Over in the UK, we've had artists like Dua Lipa and Coldplay try and call out at the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, to take some action against it. So I think yeah, it is like this big topic that's going on and is constantly changing within the industry. But then again, as Nisha mentioned, it doesn't give you a discounted price. It's the same flat ticket rate. I guess you just not buying resell, and that's the difference there.
I do think it's also a bit of a classic move from Spotify, because I think they're under quite a lot of scrutiny at the moment, and a lot of people are looking at how they're damaging artists and stuff. And I do think maybe it could be an attempt to maybe get back in good favor and be in the news for the right reasons, because it is quite a good distraction tactic there.
Yeah, and I think that is a topic that people certainly talk about, is how much Spotify pay their artists in comparisons. I mean, other platforms don't pay much more, but they are paying more in comparison to Spotify, whereas they are making this money from the subscriptions, the ad revenue. Yeah. Nisha, do you have any final takes?
I just think it's really, we have to sort of wait and see. And I think in America they definitely do have a problem. Like, I know a lot of European countries, I think in Ireland we have it where it's kind of like a law against sort of reselling for much more expensive. Where I know like in the US people pay thousands for one seat. So I think maybe it will help with that, especially in the US. But I suppose we just sort of have to wait and see how they do it and if it works.
Yeah, because I remember seeing when Ariana Grande announced her tour, someone was reselling a ticket for like $1 million in like for one of her LA shows, to the point where Ticketmaster just took the sale down, which I feel like it's action I've never seen before, and it's also the most outlandish price you've ever seen, because it, no ticket is really worth $1 million. Like, let's be realistic. But yeah, so I think we're gonna go on to Nisha next. You've kind of got a collection of EPs and songs to talk about for us today.
Yeah, so three of them were released last week, and then the first one I'm going to talk about, it was released sort of a few weeks ago, but I never got to speak about it on the podcast, and it is an album that has gone sort of like multi-platinum in my bedroom because I've been obsessed with it. And it is God Save the Three by Curtains and Glaive, and it's just like a really good album. They released one single called The Troubles, and I really loved it. And the music video, it was filmed in Kilkee, Ireland, and I was like, I love to see like my country so beautiful. But The Troubles was a great song on it, the single. And then my two other favorites, Yaya Torre and The Band. But I really love this album, and I actually would recommend it to people that don't like sort of that style of music and stuff. But because it is just so good, it's so diverse. Like, you have sort of slower songs, you have kind of more upbeat songs, and it's a really good album, and I really wanted to talk about it. Um, then last Wednesday, Bladee released an album called the Sulfur, and it's definitely more experimental for him. But I think he's at that stage of his career where he can be more experimental. And I think it works. I think it's like a bit of a heavier sound for him, and I think it's really good. And I really enjoy seeing sort of artists kind of get to a point in their career where they can sort of do what they want and experiment and stuff like that. And then Fakemink also released kind of an experimental album as well, called Terrified. And he kind of he in interviews before it was released, he kind of really hyped it up, saying like, oh, this is going to change music, this is going to do this, that, and the other. And it kind of did fall a little bit flat. I think like it's a good album, and it is definitely different from what he's done before. He kind of did more producing on it. I think it's kind of his first shot at that. But I think he made these crazy claims that we kind of, as fans, had a really high expectation for what it was going to be, and it just wasn't really that. Like, there's some songs on it that I do enjoy. Like, I like Playlist, Like a Virgin, um, but it was just a bit like, is that it? Is this kind of what you were talking about? But it seemed like it was a real passion project for him, which I think is great. And then Bookshot released an EP last week called Indigo Child, and I really like that. Even though some of the songs on it, the better songs on the EP were singles previously, um, but it was still really good. And he started his tour yesterday. in Dublin, and I I wished I was there. I asked all my friends if someone would go with me, and no one would. But yeah, these are some sort of new music that I've been enjoying in the past while.
Yeah, I think the third album you mentioned, then you said it fell flat. Um, just I feel like you never really hear artists hype up an album to the point where they say it's gonna change industry. Not like I feel like it could set you up for failure, and in this case, to you it has. I mean, for an artist, as you mentioned, it was a passion project, so maybe for him it had a completely different effect. But I feel like you never really hear artists hyping up their own album. They'll give you teasers and snippets, but they'll never say like this is the best thing that's like to ever come out. It's going to completely shape the industry. I think that's really interesting because typically you'll see the gratitudes and the gratefulness afterwards once fans receive the album and there is success. And I feel like it's kind of just bits them on the bum. I can't lie. Katie, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. That's very unusual. I feel like that's something a critic says. I don't think, even if you're thinking it, it's not usually something you come out with. I also think that's such a man thing to do. You wouldn't catch a woman being like, this album's going to change music. But yeah, it's quite funny.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thing because I've not heard of him before. But I
Yeah,
mean, it kind of is like this underdog story of like, oh, people haven't heard of him, but people are gonna know me now and they're gonna know me for shape of music for the future.
and it will not be this album that people know him by. I don't think so because like he had like some big success. Like he was on one of SD Kid's songs, and that was kind of the song that kind of catapulted him. But I don't know why. And I think it is that kind of like I wouldn't even consider him like underground rap anymore because he has got like a few million monthly listeners on Spotify. But it's just like why would he say that? Like
Yeah,
it's
it's like
kind of like if it did change music, brilliant. He brought that claim, but the chances of that happening when he said that, like you cannot take that risk. I don't
it's
think
like
so anyway.
it's like you see the same in like other industries in film. You'll never see a director say like, "Oh, this is my magnum opus. Like this is gonna be the best thing I've ever came out with." You just don't typically see that. I respect the self-belief. Um,
But like
but
keep
yeah,
it to
yeah,
the journal, keep it to the manifesting journal, I think.
yeah. Like maybe just keep that to like the Pinterest board, but not like I feel like you don't really come out and say that publicly to everyone. You hype it up, sure,
Yeah.
but I don't think you go that far.
I also think classically artists don't really seem to have much of an idea of which of their songs are going to go big. I think usually they expect it to be one and then it turns out being another one that everyone really loves. So it's quite a confident claim that.
Yeah, and I think like obviously artists release singles to give you a taste, and typically they will be the popular ones, but then sometimes they could just get it completely wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
then they're like 6 months into this album cycle where it's been released that the most popular one is now the single and has a music video and everything attached. You just can't really judge this thing. It's like for me, I remember I think the most recent example that comes to my mind is when Billie Eilish came out with her album with Birds of a Feather. That ended up being the most popular song, but a music video and a single release wasn't until months and months and months after the album had been out. So I think, yeah, it's an interesting take. Um, I'm not really too sure how his fans respond to that. Even if they do find it his best work, yeah.
Well, I don't think anyone really has found it his best work.
Oh,
Because it is very different to what he's done before. And like look, for like an album to produce it yourself, he's like what, 20? Um, it is like fair play to him for that because it is a lot of work. But I think people are kind of a bit disappointed with it.
maybe
There's
it's
still some songs on it that I do enjoy, and I'm sure there's plenty that people do, but I think all this hype around it, um, or these crazy claims, really, because like hype with an album is regular, I think, but these crazy claims,
yeah, because at the end of the day, the artist's got to sell the album to the
yeah,
audience. They have to make money. But yeah, the claims, maybe it's just the fact that he's 20. I mean, you're 20, you're gonna make so much more music in your lifetime, probably.
yeah,
So I think it's quite bold. But you mentioned a lot of experimental albums, and I think we're going to move on to someone who could be deemed as quite experimental. With Olivia Rodrigo, she came out with her new single. I mean, with her two albums, Sour and Guts, we've seen a big change in how she's released music thematically. I mean, it's been a big switch up. So we got Katie talking about Olivia Rodrigo's new song.
Yeah, so I think my segue there would be that I do think this is one of the best songs that's been released in a while. So she might not have claimed it, but I feel like she's proved herself there. And the reason I like it so much is probably to do with how different it is to her earlier stuff. And I've always liked Olivia Rodrigo, but I've always had that slight thing of it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure. Whereas I think these last two singles she's released, they've lyrically and musically been so strong. It's almost like it's crazy to see the evolution. And I know quite often music and musicians get their works like ascribed to their age, and people will be like, oh, this represents a more mature era. And I'm never sure how I feel about that normally, because it almost labels earlier works as like less good, basically. And sometimes I know with like Wolf Alice, their newest album got described as like their most mature work yet. And sometimes I feel a bit uncomfortable with that, but I do think with this one it's quite on the nose, really. And lyrically, I just think a lot of her earlier stuff were very much like the focus was romantic love and about chasing it and rejection and all of that. But I feel like even though, so the single's called The Cure, and it's kind of about how you can spend your whole life chasing romantic love, but it's not going to fix everything in your life. And all these issues you've still got going on, yeah, it might feel great, but you're still you and they're still going to be there. And it's kind of accepting that and realizing that that's okay. And I just think that's such a switch up from her earlier albums, and it really shows how her mindset's developing, really. And I think you can see a lot of that now with like CMAT and Ray. Even though, you know, love songs are never going to die, I feel like the way people sing about it now has this new spin where there's so much more to say than just, oh, I'm in love with this person, like they're great. There's always like another edge to it. And also musically, I'm going to try and not go too nerdy with this, but the chords in it are really clever, and it's something she's always been good at. Like Vampire, the chords in that are really good as well. But the reason I think it's just so satisfying to listen to is in the verse she mainly uses suspended chords, which basically means that the third is missing, so they're not not minor or major. So you're just kind of in this weird space, and then for the chorus and the outro, you move into mainly major chords, so you're like floating around, and then you hit this really like almost like happy sounding, even though the lyrics aren't necessarily happy. It's like so much brighter, and I think there's just something really satisfying about that move. And she's not really experimented like that before. Like even when she's used clever chord patterns, they've always been a lot more traditional pop, and I just think it's really interesting that she's going down this new road with it all.
Yeah, I think that argument that you presented of maturity is quite interesting because I think it is thrown around quite a lot. But then maybe when it comes to like a different sound or experimentalness, maybe just earlier on in their career, they were maybe a bit more free within their music. Whereas obviously you've went quite in depth with how musically and lyrically it is, and has explored like a different avenue of how she is. Maybe like these things are like the chord progressions, she didn't think that at first, possibly. And now she's actively looking into this and how that makes the listener feel. I've actually not gave it a chance yet. So that's certainly something that I'll be doing after the podcast. I've listened to the first single. The Cure will be literally 5 minutes after this. So, Nisha, have you gave it a chance yet?
No, but I'll be doing the exact same thing because I quite like Olivia Rodrigo just like as an artist in general. I think as an artist and as a person, I think she seems to be, obviously we don't know her, but how she presents herself is, I think, really nice, and I definitely will be giving this a listen because you've sold it to me. You've made it sound really good.
Yeah, and I think we talked about with the first single, I think Anna brought it up, and we kind of talked about this dreamy in the first single. Would you say that's a similar vibe for The Cure? Or
Definitely. I think the singles are really similar, like musically. In terms of influences, I think they're both quite 90s, both quite 90s. Can't I say that? 90s sounding. And they just kind of they're quite hazy, quite spacey, and I think they just complement each other really well. And it's nice to hear that that first single wasn't just its own experimental thing. Like, it really sounds like this is a new sound she's going for, and she does it really well. So I'm really excited to hear the rest of it.
Yeah, so like sonically, she's went for this dreamy, hazy, or maybe ethereal sound. And hopefully, I mean, I'm sure you're hoping this sound is continued throughout the rest of the album and it's not just the singles. And I think that is something that is very different to her past, where Guts was very kind of rock. It was kind of hard in your face. And I really enjoyed that. I think I just remember like hearing the drums on some songs and I was like, like this hit is hitting and it's really good. And back to Nisha's point of kind of how likable Olivia is, I think it's mainly because she is our age. Um, Maybe we can relate to that and the stories that she's telling, and she kind of just like has this likability towards her.
Yeah, she's a really good role model. I think just everything she's done politically, like inside and outside her music. And I wrote an article on it a while ago, but the way she's like so comfortable with rage as well, which as a woman is, you know, you're not always taught that you can behave like that. But I just think it's a really important thing to see, and she's a really important woman to spotlight as well.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's a very nice note to end off this episode. As always, guys, thank you for listening and joining us for episode 13 today. Check out our website, Music News Blitz, where you'll find a load more articles about everything going on within the music industry, as well as our social medias. Thank you for listening, and that's a bye-bye from us.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.